The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of cosmic energy. For millennia, Jedi and Sith have drawn upon this mystical field, shaping destiny with powers that transcend physical law. But what happens when something arrives from beyond, a city born of pure science, carrying technology millions of years advanced, yet utterly blind to the force that permeates everything around it? What happens when 300 humans from another reality find themselves trapped in a galaxy at war, where their rational understanding of the universe collides with ancient mysticism, and both the Empire and Rebellion would kill to possess the secrets they carry? The answer tears through the fabric of space itself. The city appeared without warning. One moment, the star system designated GC 7741 in the outer rim contained nothing but a barren ice planet and its 3 moons, monitored by a single automated Imperial probe. The next moment, reality fractured. A wound in space split open above the 4th moon, and through it came something impossible. Atlantis. The ancient city ship emerged from the dimensional rift in a cascade of exotic particles and gravitational distortions that sent the Imperial probe's sensors into screaming overload before it exploded. 6 massive piers stretched outward from a central spire that climbed kilometers into space, the entire structure glowing with bioluminescent light as if the city itself were alive. Crystalline towers caught the system's distant sun, refracting it into colors that had no name in any human language. The sheer scale of it defied comprehension. Atlantis was larger than any Star Destroyer, a floating metropolis that could house tens of thousands, now drifting in silent majesty above a frozen moon. But inside the city, there was nothing majestic about the situation. Only chaos. Report. Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard barked, gripping the arms of the ancient chair as the control interface pulsed erratically beneath his hands. The neural connection that usually responded to his thoughts felt sluggish, delayed, like trying to run through waist-deep water. We've exited hyperspace. Dr. Rodney McKay's voice cracked with panic as his fingers flew across the ancient console, holographic displays erupting in warning symbols he'd never seen before. Or whatever the hell that was. That wasn't hyperspace, Sheppard, that was something else entirely. The wormhole drive tore a hole in, oh God, the power consumption. McKay, I need useful information. Sheppard snapped. The ZPMs are down to 42%. McKay shouted back, his face illuminated by red warning lights that bathed the control tower in crimson. We just burned through 60% of our remaining power reserves in under 3 minutes. Whatever dimensional barrier we just punched through, it nearly drained us completely. Tayla Emigon steadied herself against a console, her usual grace momentarily lost as the city shuddered beneath them. Where are we? That's the million-dollar question. Ronan Dex stood near the windows, his energy pistol already drawn, eyes scanning the unfamiliar stars beyond the city shields. Doesn't look like any system I've seen. That's because we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, McKay muttered, pulling up a star chart that flickered with unstable data. These constellations don't match anything in the Pegasus galaxy. Or the Milky Way. Or any galaxy we've ever mapped. Silence fell over the command center like a funeral shroud. Say that again, Sheppard said slowly. McKay turned, his face pale. We're not just lost, Colonel. We're not even in our own universe anymore. That rift we came through, it wasn't a spatial jump. It was dimensional. We've crossed into another reality entirely. Before anyone could process that nightmare scenario, Major Evan Lorne's voice crackled over the radio from the city's long-range sensor station. Colonel, we've got a contact. Single vessel, approximately 40 kilometers out and closing. It's big, sir. Really big. Sheppard was already moving toward the sensor's display. How big? 1.6 kilometers, Lorne reported, and even through the radio, his disbelief was audible. Wedge-shaped configuration, unknown design. It's not Wraith, ancient, or anything in our database. And Colonel? It's powering weapons. The holographic display resolved into a 3-dimensional rendering that made McKay's breath catch. The vessel was a dagger of gray steel and angular brutality, studded with weapons emplacements and emanating energy signatures that the ancient sensors struggled to categorize. It moved with predatory confidence, and along its hull, Atlantis's sensors detected hundreds of smaller energy signatures, fighters, perhaps, or troops. "Hail them," Sheppard ordered. "Standard first contact protocols." "Already trying," McKay replied, fingers dancing across controls. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, standard mathematical progression, even visual symbols." "They're not responding. Either they don't understand or they don't care." The wedge-shaped vessel continued its approach, and now Atlantis's sensors detected active targeting scans washing over the city's shields. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't here for diplomatic relations. "Shields are holding at 70%, McKay reported tensely. "But if we have to fight with ZPMs this low, we won't last long. We need to buy time, maybe try." "Colonel Sheppard." Dr. Jennifer Keller's voice came through on a different channel, tight with urgency. "Medical teams are reporting injuries from the dimensional transition. Nothing critical yet, but people are disoriented, nauseous. Whatever we went through, it affected everyone biologically." Sheppard closed his eyes briefly, the weight of command settling on his shoulders like lead. 300 people depending on him. A city ship with power reserves in the red. An unknown vessel approaching with hostile intent. And somewhere out there, an entire universe they didn't understand, following rules they couldn't predict. The ancient chair hummed beneath him, awaiting his command. Drone weapons fully armed. Shields operational. Puddle jumpers ready in their bays. Atlantis might be wounded, but she wasn't defenseless. The question was, what happened when ancient technology met whatever civilization had built that massive warship? "All personnel to defensive stations," Sheppard said quietly, his voice carrying the calm that came before storms. "McKay, transfer all available power to shields and weapons. Lorne, scramble 4 puddle jumpers for combat air patrol. Ronan, Taylor, get to the gate room and coordinate security teams. If that ship tries to board us, I want a welcoming committee." "And if they just open fire?" Ronan asked, already heading for the door. Sheppard settled deeper into the ancient chair, feeling the neural interface sharpen as combat subroutines activated. Through the city's sensors, he could feel Atlantis responding to his thoughts, ancient, powerful, and ready to defend herself one more time. Then they're about to learn why the ancients ruled galaxies. On the view screen, the Imperial Star Destroyer inexorable closed to weapons range, its turbolaser batteries tracking the mysterious city that had appeared in Imperial space. In the Star Destroyer's command tower, Captain Ron Morse stood with his hands clasped behind his back, studying the sensor readouts with growing fascination. "Sir, shall we open fire?" his weapons officer asked. Captain Morse smiled slowly. "Not yet. Scan it thoroughly. Command will want complete data before we obliterate it." He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Besides, Commander, I want to know what could possibly build something that magnificent. Right before we take it apart." 2 galaxies had just collided. And neither one was ready for what came next. If you want to see more characters and ships enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character or vessel you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The inexorable hung in space like a predator studying prey, its sensor arrays sweeping over Atlantis with methodical precision. In the city's control tower, holographic displays tracked every movement of the massive warship, and Dr. Rodney McKay felt his stomach twist into knots as more data streamed in. "Okay, so here's the good news and the bad news," McKay announced, his voice climbing half an octave. "Good news, their scanning technology is primitive compared to ours. Ancient sensors are reading their systems like an open book. Bad news, they have a lot of systems. I'm counting over 1,000 weapon emplacements on that ship alone, and their power generation is, actually, that shouldn't be possible. They're using some kind of fusion reactor network that violates basic thermodynamic efficiency, but it's working anyway. Focus, Rodney, Sheppard said from the ancient chair, his eyes never leaving the Star Destroyer's image. Can they hurt us? Their weapons appear to be high-energy plasma cannons, turbolasers according to some emission signatures I'm picking up. They'd probably tickle our shields at full strength, but at 40% ZPM power. McKay grimaced. Sustained bombardment would get through eventually. And they're launching something, multiple small craft, 20, 30, 50 contacts. The holographic display erupted with dozens of new signatures. Small, angular fighters poured from the Star Destroyer's launch bays like insects from a disturbed hive. They moved in precise formations, their approach vectors designed to encircle Atlantis from multiple angles. TIE fighters, Major Lorne reported from the sensor station, though he had no idea where that designation had come from, the ancient database was somehow translating intercepted communications. Fast, maneuverable, but the sensors say they're unshielded. Looks like disposable attack craft. Nothing's disposable when it's shooting at you, Ronan muttered over the comm, already in the gate room coordinating marine fire teams. Sheppard's mind raced through tactical options. Atlantis's drone weapons could swat those fighters like flies, but every drone fired was one they couldn't replace. The city's database contained the blueprints, but manufacturing new drones required resources they didn't have and time they definitely didn't have. Puddle jumpers are away, Lorne confirmed. 4 of the small ancient craft shimmered into existence outside Atlantis's shields, their cloaking fields deactivating as drone weapons pods extended. Flight leaders report ready for engagement. Tell them to hold position, Sheppard ordered. Let's see what these people want before we start shooting. As if in answer, the comm system suddenly crackled with an incoming transmission. The signal was crude by ancient standards, electromagnetic radiation modulated in audio frequencies, laughably primitive, but the ancient city systems adapted instantly, translating and projecting the voice into the control tower. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Ron Moores of the Imperial Star Destroyer Inexorable. The voice was crisp, authoritative, carrying the absolute certainty of someone accustomed to being obeyed. You have entered restricted Imperial space without authorization. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Resistance will be met with immediate destruction. McKay's eyebrows shot up. Imperial? There's an Empire here. Oh, that's just perfect. We escape the Wraith, accidentally dimension hop, and land right in the middle of someone else's fascist regime. Can you translate back to their frequency? Sheppard asked. Already done. Their communications technology is actually impressively robust for such a low-tech civilization. Go ahead. Sheppard took a breath, choosing his words carefully. First contact protocols from the Stargate program emphasized peaceful intentions, but he wasn't about to show weakness to an armed warship. Captain Moores, this is Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard of the Atlantis expedition. We mean no harm and are not hostile to your Empire. Our arrival here was unintentional, a malfunction during faster-than-light travel. We'd appreciate the opportunity to establish peaceful relations. Static filled the silence for 3 long seconds. Then Moores's voice returned, colder now. Colonel Sheppard, sensors indicate your vessel, if that's what it is, contains technology far exceeding any known civilization in the galaxy. The Empire has strict protocols regarding advanced technology and potential threats to Imperial security. You will comply with boarding procedures, or you will be fired upon. You have 2 minutes to respond. 2 minutes, McKay repeated incredulously. They give us 2 minutes to surrender or die. What happened to diplomatic negotiations? Trade agreements? Basic courtesy? Taylor's voice came through from the gate room, calm but urgent. Colonel, perhaps we could explain our situation more fully. Surely they would understand we are merely travelers seeking. No, Sheppard's voice was flat. I've dealt with enough arrogant military types to know when someone's already made up their mind. This Captain Moores. He sees a prize he wants to deliver to his superiors. We're not people to him, we're a trophy. Then we fight? Ronan asked, and there was eagerness in his tone. We run, Sheppard corrected. McKay, how fast can we get the hyperdrive operational? In this galaxy? I have no idea. McKay's hands flew across the controls, pulling up ancient engineering schematics. The wormhole drive wasn't designed for whatever passes for hyperspace here. The dimensional physics are completely different. I'd need hours, maybe days to recalibrate the, wait. His eyes widened as data scrolled past. The city's sublight drives are still functional. They're designed to move Atlantis through normal space, and they're incredibly powerful. We could accelerate to, oh my god, we could hit 0.4 light speed in under a minute. That won't be fast enough to escape, Lorne warned. Those fighters are already spreading out. If we run, they'll pursue. Sheppard's fingers tightened on the chair arms. Through the neural interface, he could feel Atlantis's weapons system standing ready, hundreds of drone weapons in their underground silos, each one capable of tracking targets with supernatural precision. The ancient city ship had held off Wraith Hive ships, defeated Azuran vessels, and survived the Replicator War. One Imperial Star Destroyer shouldn't be a threat. But one Star Destroyer wouldn't be alone for long. If this galaxy had an empire, it had fleets. Armies. Resources beyond counting. And Atlantis had 300 people, limited power, and no way home. 90 seconds, McKay announced nervously. Colonel. A new voice cut through the calm chatter, Dr. Radek Zelenka from the secondary control station. I am detecting another energy signature. Different from the Imperial vessel. Smaller, faster, approaching from the opposite vector. It's transmitting on a different frequency, and I think it's trying to contact us directly, not the Imperial ship. What? Sheppard twisted in the chair, pulling up the new sensor data. Sure enough, a second ship was approaching at high speed, sleek, smaller than the Star Destroyer but moving with desperate urgency. Its energy signature was weaker, its systems less sophisticated, but there was something almost hopeful about its trajectory. The transmission came through garbled at first, then cleared as the ancient systems locked onto the frequency. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Voran of the Rebel Alliance. Do not surrender to the Empire. We can help you escape, but you must trust us. Respond on this frequency if you value your freedom. Rebel Alliance. McKay looked at Sheppard with wide eyes. So we've got an Empire and rebels. This galaxy has serious authority issues. 60 seconds, Lorne warned. On the view screen, the TIE fighters had completed their encirclement. The Star Destroyer's turbolaser batteries were glowing with building charge. And now this new ship, this rebel vessel, was vectoring in fast, clearly planning to intercept. Sheppard had 30 seconds to make a choice that would define Atlantis's fate in this new galaxy. Trust the Empire and surrender to superior force, hoping for mercy from a regime that talked like every authoritarian government he'd ever encountered. Trust the rebels, whoever they were, and risk allying with enemies of the local superpower based on nothing but a promise. Or trust Atlantis, light up those TIE fighters with drone weapons, and carve their own path regardless of local politics. Colonel. McKay's voice was very small. Through the ancient chair's neural interface, Sheppard felt the city's pulse, steady, powerful, patient. Atlantis had survived 10,000 years in the depths of an alien ocean. She had risen again when called. And now, in a galaxy not her own, she waited for her commander's decision. John Sheppard smiled grimly. All right, he said quietly. Let's see what kind of galaxy we've landed in. McKay, open a channel to the rebels. And charge the drone weapons, all of them. We're not surrendering to anyone. Captain Moores leaned forward in his command chair aboard the Inexorable, watching the mysterious city ship with predatory anticipation. Time's up. Weapons, target their power generation centers. Fire at will. The Star Destroyer's turbolasers erupted in brilliant emerald fury. And Atlantis lit up like a star-going supernova. The first turbolaser volley struck Atlantis's shields in a cascading wave of superheated plasma. Ancient energy barriers flared brilliant blue as they absorbed the impact, the entire city shuddering from the kinetic transfer. In the control tower, alarms shrieked and holographic displays erupted in warning symbols. Shields holding at 63%. McKay shouted over the chaos, his fingers dancing across controls. But those hits drained another 2% from the ZPMs. We can't trade blows with them, Sheppard, we'll run out of power before they run out of ammunition. Then we don't trade blows. Sheppard's eyes closed as the neural interface deepened, and suddenly he wasn't just in the chair, he was Atlantis. Every sensor became his eyes, every weapon system his hands, every shield generator his skin. We end this fast. Through the ancient chair's connection, he designated targets with pure thought. 37 TIE fighters encircling the city. Firing solutions calculated in microseconds. Launch authorization granted. From concealed silos across Atlantis's superstructure, drone weapons erupted like a swarm of golden wasps. They accelerated at impossible speeds, each one locked onto a target with precision that no computer could match, because Sheppard's mind guided every single one through the neural interface, his tactical instincts merged with ancient technology millions of years advanced. The TIE fighters never stood a chance. The drones moved like they were alive, weaving through space in patterns that defied inertia. They ignored attempted evasive maneuvers, treating the TIE fighters' desperate twists and turns as if they were standing still. When they struck, they didn't just destroy, they annihilated. Solar panels shattered, cockpits vaporized, and twin-ion engines detonated in brilliant fireballs that briefly lit the void like newborn stars. In 12 seconds, 37 TIE fighters became expanding clouds of wreckage. Holy, Lorne breathed from the sensor station, watching the carnage unfold. Aboard the Inexorable, Captain Morse lurched forward in his command chair, face draining of color. Report. What just happened? Unknown weapons, sir. His tactical officer's voice cracked with shock. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They just destroyed the entire TIE squadron. Targeting was perfect, every shot a kill, no misses. All batteries, concentrated fire on that city. Morse snarled. Now. The Star Destroyer's massive turbolaser arrays swiveled, and a devastating barrage tore across space. Dozens of emerald bolts hammered Atlantis's shields in a sustained bombardment that would have reduced any conventional vessel to molten slag. But Atlantis was not conventional. Shields at 51%. McKay reported tensely. They're actually hurting us, Sheppard. Their weapons are primitive but there's so many of them. I see them. Through the neural link, Sheppard could feel every impact like blows against his own body. Time to change the equation. He selected 15 more drones and designated a new target, not the Star Destroyer itself, but its weapons. Surgical strike. Take out their turbolaser batteries. The drones streaked toward the Inexorable like golden lightning. Point defense cannons tried to intercept them, filling space with desperate fire, but the ancient weapons wove through the defensive screen as if it didn't exist. They struck with pinpoint accuracy, one drone per turbolaser battery, detonating against the massive cannons in precise explosions that left the weapons twisted and smoking but didn't breach the Star Destroyer's hull. Within 20 seconds, the Inexorable's main batteries were silent. Sir, primary weapons offline, the tactical officer reported, his voice rising toward panic. Secondary batteries still operational, but those things are. I can see what they are, Commander. Morse snapped, but his face had gone pale. He'd served the Empire for 15 years, fought pirates and rebel scum from the core to the outer rim, and never had he encountered weapons technology like this. Get me in contact with command. Now. Before anyone could respond, a new ship burst from hyperspace, the rebel vessel that had been trying to make contact. It was a Corellian corvette, red-striped and battle-scarred, its design ancient by Imperial standards but clearly maintained with desperate care. The ship immediately positioned itself between Atlantis and the Inexorable, a ridiculously outmatched Guardian trying to shield something it didn't understand. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Voran of the Alliance. The transmission came through urgent and breathless. We don't have much time, that Star Destroyer will call for reinforcements. You need to come with us now before the entire Imperial fleet arrives. Sheppard pulled back from the neural interface slightly, his consciousness returning to something more human scale. The Star Destroyer was wounded but not destroyed, he deliberately held back, taken out their primary weapons without killing the crew. That had been a choice, a message, we can defend ourselves, but we're not murderers. But this rebel commander was right. One Star Destroyer was manageable. A fleet was another story entirely. McKay, can we track that ship if it jumps to hyperspace? Their faster-than-light technology uses different principles than our wormhole drive, but yes, ancient sensors are already analyzing their propulsion signature. I can follow them, probably. Maybe. 70% certainty. McKay paused. Okay, 60%. Fine, 50-50, but those are good odds. Those are terrible odds, Ronan muttered over the comm. Tayla's voice cut through, calm and centered. Colonel, these rebels risked their ship to warn us. That speaks to their character. Perhaps we should at least hear what they have to say. Or it's a trap, Lorne countered. Classic tactic, good cop, bad cop. Empire attacks us, rebels rescue us, we trust them and walk right into an ambush. Sheppard stared at the viewscreen, mind racing. The disabled Star Destroyer hung in space, secondary weapons still tracking Atlantis but not firing, its captain smart enough to realize he was outgunned. The rebel corvette maintained its position, shields up but weapons powered down, a gesture of non-aggression. And somewhere out there in this unfamiliar galaxy, an empire that commanded ships like that Star Destroyer, probably hundreds or thousands of them, was about to learn that something new and dangerous had arrived. Commander Voran, Sheppard transmitted, making his decision. We're willing to talk. But we follow in your wake, we don't dock, we don't board, and the first sign of betrayal means we light up your ship like we did those fighters. Understood? A pause. Then, understood, Colonel. And thank you for trusting us. Coordinates for hyperspace jump are being transmitted now. It's a short jump, just 3 parsecs to a safe location. Please follow our lead. The rebel corvette began to turn, aligning for a hyperspace vector. McKay immediately started analyzing the data, his face scrunched in concentration. Okay, I'm seeing their jump calculations. It's actually elegant in a brutish sort of way, they're using massive gravitational gradient manipulation to punch through to faster-than-light speeds. Completely different from our wormhole physics, but I think I can jury-rig the city's hyperdrive to mimic it. Give me 60 seconds. You have 30, Sheppard said flatly. Right, 30, of course 30 is plenty of time to completely reconfigure, McKay's voice dissolved into muttered equations and frantic typing. Sheppard turned his attention back to the Inexorable. Through the ancient sensors, he could detect frantic communications between the Star Destroyer and what must be Imperial Command, tight beam transmissions, encrypted but clearly urgent. Captain Moores was reporting what had happened, and somewhere in this galaxy, people with power were learning about Atlantis. That made what came next even more critical. Captain Moores, Sheppard transmitted on an open channel, making sure his next words would be heard clearly. We disabled your weapons, but we didn't destroy your ship. That was intentional. We're not your enemies, but we will defend ourselves. Tell your empire that the city of Atlantis isn't interested in their wars or their politics. We just want to be left alone. Silence from the Star Destroyer. Then Moores's voice came back, cold and brittle. You've made an enemy of the Empire today, Colonel Sheppard. And the Empire never forgets. Neither do we, Sheppard replied quietly. Neither do we. Hyperdrive recalibrated. McKay announced triumphantly. It's probably going to feel really weird and might cause some nausea and definitely isn't safe for long-term use, but it'll work for one jump. The rebel corvette's engines flared bright, and space seemed to twist around it as it accelerated impossibly fast and vanished into a tunnel of light. Go, Sheppard ordered. Atlantis's hyperdrive engaged with a sound like reality tearing. The ancient city ship lurched forward, and suddenly the stars were streaking past in impossible lines of light. The sensation was nothing like wormhole travel. This was violent, aggressive, forcing the ship through space rather than stepping around it. In the control tower, half the expedition grabbed onto consoles as artificial gravity struggled to compensate. And then, 3 seconds later, they dropped back into normal space. A planet hung before them, brown and arid, ringed by 3 small moons. The rebel corvette was already there, holding position alongside what looked like a small flotilla, 2 more corvettes, a battered frigate, and several small craft that McKay's sensors identified as freighters and transports. They'd jumped to what appeared to be a remote system, far from major hyperlanes, the kind of place empires forgot about. "We're being hailed," Lorne announced. "Same frequency as before, but this time it's coming from multiple ships. I think we're looking at their entire task force." "On screen," Sheppard said. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared, human, male, perhaps 50 years old, with gray-streaked hair and eyes that carried the weight of too many lost battles. He wore a simple uniform, orange flight suit with military patches, and there was nothing in his expression but exhausted hope. "Colonel Sheppard," the man said. "I'm General Rieekan, Alliance to Restore the Republic. Welcome to what might be the most important meeting in this galaxy's history. Because after what I just watched you do to that Star Destroyer, I have a question that could change everything." He leaned forward, and Sheppard saw desperation barely held in check. "Would you be willing to fight the Empire?" The silence in Atlantis's control tower stretched for 5 full heartbeats. On the view screen, General Rieekan waited with the patient stillness of a man who had learned that rushed decisions led to dead soldiers. Sheppard finally leaned back in the ancient chair, the neural interface dimming as he withdrew from direct control. "General, that's one hell of an opening line." "I've found that honesty saves time, Colonel," Rieekan replied. "Time is something the rebellion doesn't have much of. Neither do you, I suspect, after what just happened out there." "He's got a point," McKay muttered from his station. "We just humiliated an Imperial Star Destroyer. They're going to want payback, and they're going to want our technology. We've painted a target on ourselves the size of the size of a city." Taylor stepped closer to the view screen, studying Rieekan's face with the intuition that made her such an effective diplomat. "General, you call yourself the Alliance to Restore the Republic. What is it you are fighting to restore?" Something flickered in Rieekan's eyes, pain, old and deep. 20 years ago, the Galactic Republic stood for 1,000 generations. Democratic rule, systems governing themselves, protected by the Jedi Order who served as peacekeepers and guardians. Then a war came, orchestrated by the very man who claimed to be our Chancellor. He used the conflict to seize absolute power, declared himself Emperor, and transformed the Republic into the Empire you just encountered. The Jedi were massacred. Democracy was dissolved. And now an entire galaxy lives under the boot of tyranny. "And you're trying to fight back," Sheppard said. "It wasn't a question." "We're trying to survive," Rieekan corrected. "The Empire has millions of troops, thousands of warships, resources from 10,000 worlds. We have," he gestured to the small flotilla visible behind him. "This patchwork fleets held together with hope and spare parts. We win small victories, rescue who we can, and run before the Empire can crush us. It's been this way for years." Ronan's voice came through the comm from the gate room, blunt as ever. "Sounds like you're losing." "We are," Rieekan admitted without shame. "Slowly, inevitably, unless something changes." "And then you appeared," A city that destroyed an entire TIE squadron in seconds and crippled a Star Destroyer without breaking a sweat. Colonel Sheppard, I won't lie to you. The rebellion needs allies. We need weapons. We need hope. And right now, you represent all three. McKay pulled up sensor data, his expression troubled. Sheppard, I'm analyzing their fleet composition. These ships are old, decades old, some of them. They're running on outdated technology, patched systems, jury-rigged repairs. And their power generation is barely sufficient for basic operations. These people aren't just fighting the Empire. They're doing it with one hand tied behind their backs. Which makes them desperate, Lorne added quietly. Desperate enough to approach a completely unknown entity and ask them to join a war that they're losing. Sheppard studied Rieekan's face. He'd seen that look before, on Colonel Sumner when the Wraith had come to Atlantis. On Elizabeth Weir when the city was sinking. On his own face in the mirror after Kolya, after Michael, after Ford. The look of someone who had lost too much and refused to stop fighting anyway. General, we appreciate the honesty, Sheppard said carefully. But you need to understand our situation. We're not from your galaxy. We don't know your politics, your history, or who's right and who's wrong in your war. We've got 300 people depending on me to keep them alive, and right now, our priority is figuring out how to get home. I understand, Rieekan said, and the disappointment in his voice was profound. But Colonel. However, Sheppard continued, cutting him off. We're not going to ally with an empire that opens negotiations with surrender or die. That's not how we operate. So here's what I'm willing to offer, information exchange. You tell us about this galaxy, the major powers, the politics. We'll tell you what we can about our technology and capabilities. No commitments, no alliances. Just dialogue. Rieekan was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing his options. Then he nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair, actually, given we're strangers. Would you be willing to allow a small delegation aboard your city? Or we could arrange a meeting on neutral ground if you prefer. McKay's head snapped up. Absolutely not. We are not allowing unknown personnel access to Atlantis. Do you have any idea how many security protocols that would violate? The ancient technology alone is. McKay, Sheppard interrupted. I wasn't going to let them aboard anyway. He turned back to Rieekan. Neutral ground sounds good. But General, I need something from you first. A gesture of good faith. Name it. Information. Specifically, I need to know about something we've been detecting since we arrived. Sheppard nodded to McKay, who pulled up sensor readings that had been puzzling them since the encounter with the Inexorable. Our scanners keep picking up unusual energy signatures from some of your personnel, nothing technological, something biological. It's like there's an energy field permeating everything in this galaxy, connecting all living things. Our sensors weren't designed to detect it, but it's there, and it seems to interact with consciousness somehow. Rieekan's expression shifted subtly, surprise, then something that looked like cautious respect. Your sensors can detect the Force? That's unprecedented. The Empire's best scientists have tried for years to measure it scientifically, always failed. It's not technological, it's metaphysical. The Force, Taylor repeated softly. Like a religion? Not exactly, Rieekan replied. The Force is real, measurable in its effects if not its nature. It binds the galaxy together, connects all living things. Some beings are sensitive to it, they can draw upon it for abilities that seem impossible. Telekinesis, precognition, enhanced reflexes, even influencing thoughts. The Jedi used it to maintain peace for millennia. The Sith used it to conquer and destroy. McKay's fingers were already flying across his console, correlating the sensor data with Rieekan's explanation. Wait, you're saying there's an actual measurable energy field that allows for psychic powers? That shouldn't be possible. The amount of energy required for telekinesis alone would, he stopped, staring at his readings. Oh. Oh no. Sheppard, these readings make sense now. The Force isn't providing the energy, it's providing the connection. It's like a quantum entanglement field on a galactic scale, allowing consciousness to interact directly with matter through. He looked up, face pale. This changes everything we know about physics. Does your expedition have anyone who can use this force? Rieekan asked, and there was careful interest in his voice. No, Sheppard answered immediately. We've got no one with psychic abilities or anything close to it. Our strengths are technology and good old-fashioned human ingenuity. It wasn't entirely true. The ancients had been able to interface with their technology through mental connection, and Sheppard's strong ancient gene gave him abilities that looked almost telekinetic when he used the chair. But that was technology, not mysticism, and he wasn't about to reveal the extent of Atlantis's capabilities to strangers. Rieekan seemed to accept this, nodding slowly. Then you're at a disadvantage in this galaxy, Colonel. The Emperor himself is a master of the dark side of the Force, perhaps the most powerful who has ever lived. His enforcer, Darth Vader, is similarly skilled. They can sense intentions, manipulate minds, even kill with a thought. Your technology is impressive, but the Force is something else entirely. We've dealt with things we didn't understand before, Sheppard said quietly. We adapt. A faint smile crossed Rieekan's face. I believe you. All right, Colonel, neutral meeting. There's a moon in this system, barely habitable but with breathable atmosphere. We can meet there in 6 hours, give both our sides time to prepare. Small delegations only, say, 5 people each. Agreed, Sheppard replied. But General. One more question. You said the Jedi were massacred. Are there any left? The pain that crossed Rieekan's face was answer enough. A handful, scattered across the galaxy, in hiding. The Empire hunts them relentlessly. Why do you ask? Because if this force is real, if it connects everything in your galaxy, then maybe someone who understands it could help us understand how our technology interacts with it. We need information, General. Not soldiers, information. Rieekan studied him for a long moment. There's a Jedi with our fleet. Young, still learning, but powerful. If you want to understand the Force, I could arrange for her to be part of our delegation. Do it, Sheppard said. After the transmission ended, McKay turned to face Sheppard, his expression troubled. You realize we just essentially agreed to meet with space wizards who can read minds and move objects with their thoughts. And we're bringing exactly 0 psychic countermeasures because we don't even know if psychic countermeasures are possible in this universe. I know, Sheppard replied calmly. Which is why you're going to spend the next 6 hours analyzing every scrap of data we have on this Force and figuring out if ancient shielding technology can block it. Oh, is that all? Just reverse engineer psychic defenses in 6 hours? Sure, let me just pull a miracle out of my Rodney. McKay sighed. Fine. 6 hours. But if this Jedi reads my mind and learns all about ancient technology, I'm blaming you. Tayla approached the command chair, her expression thoughtful. Colonel, this empire reminds me of the Wraith, overwhelming power, ruthless in their domination. But this rebellion, they fight not for survival alone, but for principle. That speaks well of them. Maybe, Sheppard acknowledged. Or maybe they're just the losing side in someone else's civil war. We don't know enough yet to pick sides. And if we must? Tayla asked quietly. If this galaxy forces us to choose. Sheppard was silent for a moment, thinking about 300 people depending on his decisions. About a city that had crossed dimensions to end up here. About an empire that would never stop hunting them and a rebellion that couldn't protect them. Then we choose ourselves, he said finally. We always have. 6 hours until the meeting. 6 hours to prepare for first contact with a Jedi and learn if the Force was something ancient technology could understand. 6 hours before Atlantis discovered whether science could coexist with magic, or if they were about to step into a conflict that had no room for neutrality. The moon was a desolate place, all rust-colored rock and thin atmosphere that tasted of iron and ancient dust. 2 ships descended through wisps of cloud, the rebel corvette Redemption's Call and a single puddle jumper from Atlantis, its cloaking device disabled as a gesture of good faith. Inside the jumper, Sheppard sat at the controls while McKay obsessively checked readings on a portable scanner. Behind them, Tayla and Ronan maintained vigilant watch, and Dr. Jennifer Keller nervously adjusted her medical kit, brought along in case this force turned out to have biological components worth studying. Ancient shielding is active, McKay reported for the 3rd time in as many minutes. Personal force fields calibrated to maximum. This Jedi tries any mind tricks, we'll know immediately. Probably. Maybe. The theory is sound but completely untested against psychic manipulation that shouldn't exist according to every law of physics I understand. Rodney, breathe, Keller said gently. I am breathing. I'm just doing it anxiously. The jumper settled onto the rocky surface 20 meters from where the rebel delegation had already landed. Through the forward viewport, Sheppard could see 5 figures waiting, General Rieekan, 2 guards in orange flight suits, and 2 others. One was a woman, perhaps 30 years old, with sharp features and the bearing of a career soldier. The other made Sheppard's breath catch. She looked barely 20, dressed in simple robes of brown and tan, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. But it was her presence that arrested attention. Something about the way she stood suggested coiled potential, like a weapon sheathed but ready. At her belt hung a cylindrical object that McKay's scanner immediately flagged. That's a lightsaber, McKay breathed, reading the energy signature. Contained plasma held in magnetic suspension, powered by some kind of crystal that generates, oh my god, the energy readings are impossible. That thing could cut through almost anything. Including us? Ronan asked, hand drifting toward his particle magnum. Let's not find out, Sheppard said. Remember, we're here to talk, not fight. Everyone stay calm, stay alert, and if things go sideways, get back to the jumper fast. They exited into the thin atmosphere, breathable but uncomfortable, requiring slightly deeper breaths. The rebel delegation approached at an unhurried pace, and as they drew closer, Sheppard felt something odd, a sensation like standing near high-voltage equipment, that prickle of energy that raised the hairs on your arms. That's the force, McKay whispered, staring at his scanner. The readings spike around the young woman. She's generating some kind of field effect that extends roughly 3 meters in all directions. It's interacting with local matter at the quantum level in ways that make absolutely no sense. Colonel Sheppard. Rieekan extended his hand in a gesture Sheppard recognized, universal human greeting. They shook, and the general gestured to his companions. This is Major Serevan, my tactical officer, and our security detail. And this, he indicated the young woman, is Jedi Padawan Kira Ven. The Jedi stepped forward, and Sheppard noticed her eyes, amber, intense, studying him with an intelligence that felt like it saw too much. Colonel. Your thoughts are unusual. Guarded, but not hostile. And there's something else, a resonance I don't understand. You carry something ancient with you. McKay's hand moved to his scanner. She's reading. Surface thoughts only, Kira interrupted, not unkindly. I sense emotions, intentions, nothing deeper. It's not invasion, merely awareness. Like hearing someone's voice in a crowded room. I'd prefer my thoughts to be private, if it's all the same to you, Sheppard said evenly. Kira inclined her head respectfully. Of course. The Force connects all things, but I can withdraw somewhat. Focus elsewhere. She did something, Sheppard couldn't say what, and that prickling sensation decreased noticeably. Better. Better, he agreed. He turned to make introductions. This is Dr. Rodney McKay, our chief scientist. Tayla Emagon, our diplomatic specialist. Ronan Dex, our security chief. And Dr. Jennifer Keller, medical. We appreciate you agreeing to this meeting. The appreciation is mutual, Rieekan said. Especially given how our first encounter went. Captain Morse's report reached Imperial Command within hours. There's already a substantial bounty on your city, alive, preferably, but the Emperor wants your technology either way. How substantial? Ronan asked, ever practical. 200,000 credits for information leading to your location. 500,000 for actual capture. Rieekan's expression was grim. That's enough to buy a small fleet. Every bounty hunter, pirate, and opportunist in 3 sectors will be looking for you. Fantastic, McKay muttered. We've been here less than a day and we're already on a galactic most wanted list. Kira was still studying them, her head tilted slightly. You're not from this galaxy. I can feel it, you're disconnected somehow. The Force touches you, but it doesn't flow through you the way it does everything else here. Like you exist slightly apart from the natural order. That's because we do, Sheppard confirmed. We crossed dimensional barriers to get here. Accident, not intention. Our universe operates on different physical laws. Different laws, Kira's eyes widened. That's why I can't read you clearly. You're not part of the Force's web here. You're foreign to it. She turned to Rieekan. General, they're telling the truth. Whatever they are, they're not Imperial agents or spies. They're genuinely lost. You can sense deception? Tayla asked with interest. The Force reveals truth, Kira replied. Lies create ripples, disturbances in the natural flow. But you, all of you, you're like stones the river hasn't learned to flow around yet. New and strange. McKay was frantically recording readings, his scientific worldview visibly fragmenting. This is incredible. You're describing what sounds like quantum observation affecting probability fields, but through conscious will rather than measurement. The philosophical implications alone. Rodney, Sheppard cut him off gently. Focus. We're here to exchange information, not write papers. Rieekan gestured toward a cleared area where someone had set up portable seating, simple camp chairs around a heating unit that fought back the moon's chill. Shall we? I think we all have questions that need answering. They settled into an uneasy circle, Rebels and Atlantis expedition, sizing each other up. Sheppard noticed Ronan positioning himself where he could watch all approaches, while Kira did something similar, her hand never straying far from her lightsaber. Warriors recognized warriors, apparently, regardless of galaxy. Let's start with the basics, Sheppard suggested. You've told us about your empire and your war. What we need to know is, how big is this galaxy? How many civilizations? And more importantly, what are the rules of engagement here? Rieekan nodded to Major Serevan, who pulled out a small holographic projector. A 3-dimensional map materialized in the air between them, a spiral galaxy rendered in blue light, with thousands of markers indicating inhabited systems. The galaxy contains millions of inhabited worlds, Serevan explained. Tens of thousands of spacefaring civilizations, though most are part of larger governmental structures. Before the Empire, the Republic governed from Coruscant, here, in the core worlds. She indicated the galaxy's center. The Empire now controls approximately 70% of known space, including all major trade routes and industrial centers. And the rebellion? Tayla asked. We hold nothing, Rieekan said bluntly. We have bases, temporary and hidden. We raid Imperial supply lines, rescue political prisoners, support resistance movements on occupied worlds. But we control no territory, command no armies large enough to face the Empire in open battle. We survive through mobility and the support of systems brave enough to help us in secret. Keller leaned forward, studying the map with clinical interest. You mentioned earlier that the Jedi were massacred. What happened exactly? Pain flickered across Kira's face, and Rieekan answered for her. 20 years ago, the Jedi Order numbered perhaps 10,000, peacekeepers and guardians spread across the galaxy. When Emperor Palpatine seized power, he issued Order 66, a command that turned the clone army against their Jedi generals. In a single day, thousands died. The survivors were hunted by Imperial Inquisitors and Darth Vader himself. Now there are perhaps 100 Jedi left, scattered and in hiding. 100, McKay repeated, stunned. Out of 10,000. That's a genocide. It was, Kira said quietly, and her voice carried old grief. I was 6 years old when it happened. My master smuggled me off Coruscant before the Purge. He died protecting me 2 years later. I've been with the rebellion ever since, learning what I can from holocrons and fragments of Jedi teaching. I'm nowhere near what a true Jedi should be. Sheppard saw something in her then, the same look he'd seen on young soldiers who'd survived when their squads hadn't. Survivor's guilt, worn like a second skin. You're alive, he said simply. That counts for something. Kira met his eyes, and something passed between them, understanding, perhaps, of what it meant to carry the weight of the fallen. Teyla spoke into the moment. This force you wield, can it be learned? Or is it only for certain individuals? It's a matter of sensitivity, Kira explained. Some beings are naturally attuned to the Force, born with higher concentrations of midichlorians, microscopic organisms that live in all cells and act as a bridge between life and the Force. The more midichlorians, the stronger the potential connection. But potential means nothing without training, discipline, and understanding. McKay looked like he wanted to ask 17 follow-up questions about midichlorians, but Sheppard held up a hand. Here's what I need to know, General. Your Empire wants our technology. They're willing to hunt us to get it. What exactly are we looking at in terms of military threat? Rieekan's expression turned grave. The Imperial Starfleet numbers over 25,000 capital ships, including Star Destroyers, battle cruisers, and support vessels. They have access to superweapons. The Death Star was the most recent, though your rebellion destroyed it at great cost. The Emperor commands trillions of credits and can conscript armies from thousands of worlds. And then there's Vader. Tell me about Vader, Sheppard said. Kira spoke, and her voice carried fear carefully controlled. Darth Vader is the Emperor's right hand, a Sith Lord of immense power. He was once a Jedi, they say, before his fall to the dark side. He's killed dozens of Jedi, hunted them across the galaxy with ruthless efficiency. His mastery of the Force is, she struggled for words. Imagine someone who can crush your throat from across a room, who can sense your presence from kilometers away, who moves faster than human reflexes should allow. He commands an entire fleet, the Death Squadron, and his personal Star Destroyer is equipped with the Empire's most advanced technology. And the Emperor? Teyla asked softly. Worse, Kira whispered. The Emperor is dark side incarnate. Raw power wrapped in human form. I've never faced him, but the stories, she shook her head. If he turns his attention toward you, Colonel, no technology will save you. The Force at that level transcends physical law. Silence fell over the group. McKay looked ill. Keller was pale. Even Ronan seemed thoughtful, reassessing threat levels. Sheppard remained calm. We've faced impossible odds before. We survived. Not against this, Rieekan said gently. Colonel, I understand your confidence. I saw what your weapons did to the inexorable. But the Empire's resources are limitless. They can lose 100 Star Destroyers and replace them within months. Can you? No, Sheppard admitted. We've got limited ammunition for our best weapons, power reserves that won't last forever, and 300 people we can't replace at all. Which is why we need to understand this galaxy well enough to find a way home. Or, Rieekan said carefully, you could help us level the playing field. One battle. One strategic strike that your technology makes possible. In exchange, the rebellion provides you with resources, protection, and access to our intelligence networks. We help you search for a way home. General, Sheppard started. Just consider it, Rieekan interrupted. I'm not asking for a decision now. But you're right, the Empire won't leave you alone. They'll hunt you until they capture your city or destroy it. You need allies in this galaxy, Colonel. And we need hope. Perhaps we can provide both for each other. Kira stood suddenly, her hand moving to her lightsaber, not drawing it, but ready. Someone's coming. I sense darkness. Not Sith, but tainted by it. And they're close. Alarms shrieked from McKay's scanner. Multiple contacts. Hyperspace signatures, emerging at the edge of the system. Oh no. The sky lit up with new arrivals. Star Destroyers. 5 of them, dropping from hyperspace in perfect formation. And leading them, a ship larger than all the others, black as the void, bristling with weapons, and radiating menace like a physical force. Vader, Kira breathed, her face draining of color. He found us. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer hung in orbit like a dagger pressed against the moon's throat. 19 kilometers of Imperial engineering, its wedge-shaped hull bristled with enough firepower to reduce entire fleets to debris. And somewhere aboard that massive vessel, Darth Vader stood on his command bridge, reaching out through the Force to touch the lives gathered on the moon below. Inside the puddle jumper, alarms screamed as ancient sensors detected the overwhelming threat. McKay's hands flew across controls, his voice climbing toward panic. 5 Imperial Star Destroyers in standard formation, and that big one, that's registering at 19 kilometers long. The weapon signatures alone could flatten a continent. Get us back to Atlantis, Sheppard ordered, already moving toward the jumper. Now. Wait. Rieekan grabbed his arm. If you run, Vader will pursue. He can track ships through hyperspace using the Force itself, you'll lead him straight to your city. Then what do you suggest? Ronan growled, his particle magnum already drawn. Kira's eyes were distant, unfocused, reading currents in the Force that only she could perceive. He knows we're here. He felt my presence the moment he entered the system. Jedi stand out like flames in darkness to Force sensitives. But he doesn't understand what else is here. You're still invisible to him. Foreign. Not part of the Force's natural patterns. That won't last, Rieekan said urgently. The moment your jumper powers up, their sensors will lock onto your energy signature. You'll be tagged, tracked, hunted. But if you stay here, hidden among our delegation. You want us to hide behind you? Sheppard's voice was flat with disbelief. I want you to survive, Rieekan shot back. Vader came for me and Kira. We knew the risks of this meeting. Imperial intelligence has been hunting our cell for months. They must have tracked us here. He looked at his own people, his tactical officer and guards, and Sheppard saw resignation in their faces. They'd known this was a possibility. Perhaps even expected it. We'll take the Redemption's call up, draw their attention, jump to hyperspace. While they're focused on us, you slip away. That's suicide, Keller breathed. That's warfare, Major Serevan corrected quietly. We've lost good people to worse plans. If dying here means Atlantis survives to fight another day, that's a trade worth making. Sheppard stared at them, these rebels he'd met less than 6 hours ago, who were calmly discussing sacrificing themselves for strangers. It reminded him of Lieutenant Ford charging the Wraith, of Colonel Sumner dying to buy them time, of too many good people who traded their lives for others. No, he said flatly. Colonel. I said no. Sheppard's voice carried the absolute authority of command. McKay, can the jumpers cloaking shield us from their sensors? In theory, yes, but can it shield all of us? Both ships, both crews. McKay blinked. What? No. The cloaking field is designed for a single puddle jumper, not, he stopped, mind visibly racing. Wait. Wait, if I extend the emitter range and boost power from both the jumper's drive pods and the Redemption's call's reactor, I could generate a bubble large enough to encompass both vessels. It would be unstable, probably fail within 30 minutes, and definitely drain our power cells, but it would work, Sheppard finished. For 30 minutes, McKay emphasized. After that, we're visible again and trapped on this moon with Vader breathing down our necks. Kira stepped forward, her hand still on her lightsaber. I can buy you time. Vader will sense me the moment I ignite my blade. I'll lead him away, deeper into the moon's cave systems. He'll have to come after me personally. A Sith Lord doesn't ignore a Jedi, it's against their nature. While he's hunting me underground, you'll have your 30 minutes to figure out how to escape. Absolutely not, Rieekan said immediately. Kira, you can't face Vader alone. He'll kill you. Probably, Kira agreed with eerie calm. But I'll make him work for it. And every minute he spends hunting me is a minute you're not dying. She turned to Sheppard. You remind me of the Jedi I knew as a child, Colonel. Not in your abilities, but in your principles. You won't let strangers die for you. I respect that. But sometimes, the best choice is still a sacrifice. There's always another option, Sheppard said, the same words he'd spoken 100 times in 100 desperate situations. We just have to be smart enough to find it. Tayla's voice cut through the tension, calm and measured. What if we do not hide? What if instead we misdirect? Everyone turned to look at her. The puddle jumper is fast and highly maneuverable, Tayla continued. If we were to launch, draw their attention, and lead their forces away from this moon, they would pursue us, yes? And while they hunt one small craft, the Redemption's call could escape with General Rieekan and the others. They'd blow us out of the sky, Ronan said, though his tone suggested he was already calculating combat angles. Not if we're cloaked, McKay interjected, suddenly seeing where this was going. We launch uncloaked, let them see us, get them chasing. Then we activate cloak mid-pursuit, break their target lock, and vanish. They'll search for us while the Redemption's call jumps to hyperspace. And Vader? Rieekan pressed. He'll sense the deception. Kira shook her head slowly. Not necessarily. He can sense me through the Force, but your people, they're still blind spots to him. And the ancient technology, she reached out tentatively, not quite touching the puddle jumper but seeming to feel it somehow. It resonates strangely. Like nothing in this galaxy. It might confuse his senses, make tracking difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. It's risky, Sarevan said. Everything's risky, Sheppard replied. But it's better than standing here waiting to die. Rodney, how long to rig the cloak? 2 minutes if we're lucky, 5 if we're not, and if I make even one mistake we'll all become very visible corpses very quickly. Then don't make mistakes. Sheppard turned to Rieekan. General, get your people to your ship. The second we launch, you start pre-flight and be ready to jump the instant they commit to chasing us. And if they don't commit? Rieekan asked. If they ignore you and target us anyway? Sheppard smiled grimly. Then we'll make ourselves too interesting to ignore. Trust me, we've had practice being annoying. Kira touched his arm, and through the contact Sheppard felt something, a warmth, a connection, the barest brush of the Force reaching out to him. May the Force be with you, Colonel. Even if you don't believe in it. Same to you, Padawan, Sheppard replied. Even though I barely understand it. They moved fast, Rieekan's delegation sprinting for the Redemption's call while Sheppard's team piled into the puddle jumper. McKay immediately began the delicate work of reconfiguring the cloaking system, his fingers flying across ancient controls with practiced desperation. Through the jumper's forward viewport, Sheppard watched the massive Super Star Destroyer in orbit, smaller Imperial vessels spreading out in a search pattern. TIE fighters were already launching, hundreds of them, swarming like angry insects. "They're scanning the surface," Lorne's voice crackled through from Atlantis. "Colonel, we're reading your position, but those Star Destroyers are between you and us. If you need extraction—" "Negative, Major," Sheppard cut him off. "Stay with the city. We're about to get loud down here, and I don't want Vader noticing Atlantis until we're ready. We'll handle this." "Define handle," Lorne said dryly. "I'll let you know when I figure it out." Sheppard out. McKay looked up from his work, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air. "Cloak is ready, but listen carefully, we get one activation. After that, the system needs a full recalibration or we risk permanent burnout. So when you activate it, we better be damn sure it's the right moment." "Understood," Sheppard said, hands moving over the pilot controls. The jumper's engines hummed to life, and immediately his HUD lit up with warnings, multiple targeting locks from the orbital forces. "They see us," Ronan observed unnecessarily. "Good," Sheppard replied. He keyed the comm to the Redemption's call. "General, we're about to kick the hornet's nest. Be ready." "Ready, Colonel." "And Sheppard?" "Thank you. This is more than we had any right to ask." "You didn't ask," Sheppard reminded him. "We volunteered. Big difference." He pulled back on the controls, and the puddle jumper shot skyward like a bullet. Behind them, the Redemption's call remained grounded, appearing to be nothing more than a ship with engine troubles, not worth the Empire's immediate attention. All attention was on the small ancient craft screaming toward orbit. TIE fighters peeled off from their formations, converging on the jumper's position. Turbolaser fire from the nearest Star Destroyer lanced through atmosphere, superheating air into plasma trails that painted the sky with emerald death. "Evasive!" Sheppard barked, throwing the jumper into a corkscrew roll that would have torn apart any conventional craft. The ancient inertial dampeners compensated instantly, keeping everyone pressed comfortably in their seats while the universe spun outside. 20 TIE fighters closing. McKay reported. 40. 60. "Oh God, they're everywhere." "Ronan, weapons," Sheppard ordered. Ronan's grin was feral as he accessed the jumper's drone weapon controls. 2 drones launched, streaking away with impossible acceleration. They found their targets in seconds, 2 TIE fighters exploding in brilliant fireballs. But for every fighter destroyed, 3 more took its place. "This is insane." Keller shouted over the sound of impacts against the jumper's shields. "This is Tuesday," Ronan corrected, launching 2 more drones. They broke atmosphere, and suddenly space opened up around them, beautiful, deadly, and filled with Imperial firepower. The Super Star Destroyer loomed ahead, and Sheppard's sensors detected something new. A single figure standing on the command bridge, a dark presence that the ancient technology struggled to quantify. Vader. Through the Force, the Dark Lord reached out, feeling for the small craft that dared to challenge his fleet. But something was wrong. Where he expected to sense life, fear, the bright flames of living force, he found only absence. A void where his perception slipped away, unable to focus properly. The ship was real, the attacks were real, but the crew, they were like ghosts, barely there, existing at the edge of his awareness in a way that disturbed him deeply. "Interesting," Vader rumbled from his meditation chamber. "Admiral, have all squadrons focus on that craft. I want it intact." "Yes, my lord," Admiral Pyatt replied immediately. "All ships, converge on target." The Imperial fleet turned as one, massive Star Destroyers reorienting their bulk, and suddenly Sheppard realized they'd achieved exactly what they wanted, total, absolute attention. "Now would be an excellent time for that cloak," Taylor suggested with admirable calm. "The Redemption's call is launching," McKay reported. "They're clear of the surface and aligning for hyperspace jump." On his screens, Sheppard saw the rebel corvette shooting skyward, engines blazing as it raced for the safety of faster-than-light travel. One of the Star Destroyers began to turn toward it. Not yet, Sheppard muttered, angling the jumper directly toward the Super Star Destroyer. Not yet. Turbolaser fire intensified, and the jumper's shields began to fail under sustained bombardment. Sheppard. McKay screamed. Not yet. The Redemption's call completed its jump calculations, and space rippled as the corvette prepared to leap away. The Star Destroyer that had been turning toward it hesitated, its captain clearly torn between the fleeing rebel ship and the orders to focus on the strange craft attacking the flagship. Vader's presence loomed larger, trying to penetrate the veil surrounding the jumper, to understand what he was sensing. Now! Sheppard shouted. McKay slammed his hand down on the control. The puddle jumper vanished. One moment it was there, visible on every Imperial sensor, locked by hundreds of targeting computers, seconds from destruction. The next moment, it simply ceased to exist on any spectrum the Empire could detect. Chaos erupted across the Imperial fleet as officers shouted conflicting reports, as targeting systems lost lock, as Vader himself recoiled from the sudden and complete disappearance of his quarry. And in that moment of confusion, the Redemption's call jumped to lightspeed and was gone. Inside the cloaked jumper, drifting silent and invisible among the searching Star Destroyers, Sheppard allowed himself a small smile. Atlantis, this is Jumper 1. Mission accomplished. Coming home. The puddle jumper drifted through space like a ghost, its cloaking field bending light and sensor radiation around its hull while 5 Star Destroyers searched frantically for something that had simply ceased to exist. Inside the cramped cabin, McKay monitored power levels with the focus of a man defusing a bomb. "Cloak is stable," he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might give them away. "But we're burning through power reserves fast. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the field collapses." "Plot a course back to Atlantis," Sheppard ordered quietly. "Low thrust, minimal emissions. We'll coast most of the way." "Vader's ship is moving," Rieekan observed, watching the tactical display. The massive Super Star Destroyer was slowly turning, its sensor arrays sweeping space in methodical patterns. "He's looking for us." Through the jumper's sensors, they could detect the frantic Imperial communications, encrypted, but the ancient systems broke the codes almost contemptuously. Officers reported sensor ghosts, phantom readings, speculation that the mysterious craft had jumped to hyperspace. But one voice cut through all others with absolute authority. "Continue searching." Darth Vader's mechanically filtered voice carried across all channels. "They are still here. I can feel them." Keller's hand went to her mouth. "He can sense us through their cloaking." "The Force doesn't rely on conventional sensors," Tayla said softly, remembering Kira's explanations. "If he reaches out through this energy field, he may detect our presence regardless of technology." "Then why hasn't he?" McKay challenged. "We're sitting right here, practically under his nose, and he's searching blind just like his ships." Sheppard studied the tactical display, watching the Super Star Destroyer's search pattern. Vader was hunting, yes, but it was clear he was struggling, reaching out through the Force and finding nothing concrete, just vague impressions and confusing absences. Like trying to see through fog. "We're still foreign to this galaxy's force," Sheppard realized. "Kira said we don't flow with it naturally. That must be interfering with his ability to track us. The cloak hides us from their technology, and being dimensional outsiders makes us hard to sense through the Force." He smiled grimly. "For once, being the alien works in our favor." "Don't get cocky," McKay warned. "That Super Star Destroyer just launched another wave of TIE fighters. They're spreading out in a search grid that's going to pass right through our position in approximately 8 minutes. Then we move," Sheppard said, firing maneuvering thrusters at barely 1% power. The jumper crept forward at a glacial pace, threading between debris fields left from their earlier engagement. Every few seconds, a TIE fighter would scream past, mere meters away, its pilot completely unaware of the cloaked craft. The tension inside the jumper was suffocating. No one spoke. Rieekan's hand never left his weapon. Keller barely breathed. Even McKay had stopped his nervous commentary, watching power levels tick downward with each passing second. They were halfway back to Atlantis's position when Vader's voice cut through the comm channels again. Admiral Pyatt. Dispatch 2 Star Destroyers to investigate the coordinates where the rebel corvette was detected. If there are other vessels in this system, I want them found. Sheppard's blood ran cold. On the tactical display, 2 of the Star Destroyers began to turn, heading directly toward the position where Atlantis waited, cloaked and hidden among the system's asteroid belt. Lorne, Sheppard transmitted on the tightest possible beam, praying the encryption would hold. You've got company incoming. 2 Star Destroyers, you're heading 035. Do not power weapons, do not move, do not do anything that might give away your position. Static, then Lorne's tense reply. Copy that, Colonel. We're going dark. City systems minimal. But sir, if they get close enough, their sensors might. They won't, Sheppard interrupted with confidence he didn't entirely feel. Just stay quiet. We're almost home. The 2 Star Destroyers accelerated, their massive bulk moving with surprising speed toward the asteroid field. Ancient sensors tracked them precisely, they'd pass within 500 kilometers of Atlantis's position. At that range, with active sweeps, there was a real chance they'd detect the city's power signature despite the cloaking. We need to distract them, Taylor said. Draw them away before they reach Atlantis. With what? McKay hissed. We're cloaked. The moment we decloak or fire weapons, every ship in the system will be on us. Not if we're smart about it, Ronan rumbled, his tactical mind already working. We don't need to decloak. Just need to make them think something's over there. He pointed to a section of space far from both Atlantis and their current position. Drop a beacon. Make it broadcast on Imperial frequencies. They'll investigate. We don't have Imperial beacons, McKay protested. But we have ancient technology that can mimic any signal, Sheppard said, seeing the plan. Rodney, can you program a distress beacon to fake an Imperial signature? Make it look like a damaged TIE fighter or escape pod. McKay's fingers were already moving across controls. I can make it sing the Imperial anthem if you want. Give me 30 seconds. 25 seconds later, something small and bright tumbled from the cloaked jumper, a modified sensor probe, its ancient systems rewritten on the fly to broadcast exactly what Imperial sensors expected to see from a disabled fighter craft. It drifted away, activated, and began screaming for help on every Imperial emergency frequency. The response was immediate. The 2 Star Destroyers that had been heading for Atlantis turned sharply, converging on the new signal. TIE fighter squadrons redirected. Even the Super Star Destroyer adjusted its position slightly, bringing more sensors to bear on what appeared to be a survivor from the earlier engagement. They're buying it, Lorne reported from Atlantis. Star Destroyers passing our position without slowing. Good work, Colonel. But Vader's voice came through again, and this time there was suspicion in his tone. Admiral, that signal is too convenient. It appeared precisely when we approached a potentially interesting sector of this asteroid field. Shall I recall the ships, my lord? A long pause. Through the Force, Vader reached out, trying to sense deception, trying to understand the strange distortions he'd been feeling since arriving in this system. Everything about this engagement felt wrong, ships that vanished, crews he couldn't sense, technology that defied explanation. No, Vader said finally. But deploy probe droids to that asteroid field. And have Captain Nita take the Avenger to investigate more thoroughly. I want to know what's hiding there. Damn it, Sheppard muttered. 1 Star Destroyer was breaking from the main fleet, heading back toward Atlantis with clear intent. Lorne, you've got 1 Star Destroyer inbound. Time to target, 8 minutes. What do you want us to do, sir? Sheppard looked at his power reserves, barely enough to maintain cloak for another 6 minutes. He looked at the distance to Atlantis, still 4 minutes away at their current crawl. And he looked at the Imperial fleet surrounding them, hundreds of fighters, multiple capital ships, and a Super Star Destroyer commanded by a Sith Lord who was growing more suspicious by the second. "Rodney," he said quietly. "If we dropped Cloak right now, how fast could we get to Atlantis?" "At full thrust? 90 seconds. But the entire fleet would see us, target us, and blow us to atoms before we got halfway there. What if Atlantis provided covering fire?" McKay's eyes widened. "You want to turn this into a running gunfight? We'll be exposed, vulnerable, and they'll follow us straight to—" He stopped. "Oh. You want them to follow us? You want to pull the entire fleet away from investigating Atlantis by giving them an obvious target?" "The jumper's fast and maneuverable," Sheppard said. "If Atlantis launches drones to cover our approach, we can thread the needle. Once we're inside the city's shields, we're protected. And then they know exactly where Atlantis is," Keller pointed out. "They're about to know anyway," Sheppard replied. "That Star Destroyer is 8 minutes from finding the city. This way, we control the engagement. We choose when and where they discover us." Taylor nodded slowly. "The element of surprise has already been lost. Better to act than to react." "I hate this plan," McKay announced. "I want it noted that I officially hate this plan and think we're all going to die horribly. But I can't think of a better one, which makes me hate it even more." "Noted," Sheppard said. He opened the channel to Atlantis. "Lorne, prepare the city for combat. Full shields, all drone silos hot. In 60 seconds, we're coming in fast with the entire Imperial fleet on our tail. We're going to need one hell of a covering fire." "Understood, sir." Lorne's voice was steady, a professional accepting an impossible order. "The city is ready. We'll get you home." Sheppard's hands moved to the flight controls. "Everybody hold on. This is going to get rough." "It's already rough." McKay protested. "It's about to get rougher." Dropping Cloak in 3, 2, 1. The puddle jumper shimmered back into visibility like a ghost becoming solid. For one perfect moment, they hung there in space, exposed, vulnerable, and completely alone. Then every Imperial sensor in the system locked onto them simultaneously. "All ships." Admiral Pyatt's voice thundered across the fleet. "Target acquired. All batteries, converge in. Belay that order." Vader's voice cut through like a blade. "I want that ship intact. Disable it, do not destroy." Sheppard slammed the throttle to maximum. The puddle jumper's engines screamed to life, ancient technology pouring power into propulsion systems that made Imperial drives look primitive by comparison. They shot forward at acceleration that would have pulverized any human crew if not for inertial dampeners. TIE fighters swarmed after them. Turbolaser fire filled space with deadly light. And ahead, growing larger with each second, Atlantis lit up like a star as her shields came online and drone weapons began to launch. "Incoming fire!" Ronan called out, watching their rear sensors. "I noticed." Sheppard yanked the controls, sending the jumper into a barrel roll that barely avoided a turbolaser burst. Another blast scorched past their starboard side. A TIE fighter exploded as it got too close, unable to match their sudden direction changes. From Atlantis, golden drones streaked out to meet them, a protective swarm that immediately engaged the pursuing TIE fighters. The ancient weapons moved with supernatural precision, each one finding its target, and the space between the jumper and the city became a killing field. But the Star Destroyers were closing, their massive bulk accelerating to intercept. 30 seconds to Atlantis. McKay shouted. "Shields at 40%. We can't take much more of this." A turbolaser blast clipped their rear, and the jumper shuddered violently. Warning alarms shrieked. Power fluctuated. 20 seconds. More drones from Atlantis, creating a protective corridor through the Imperial forces. Sheppard flew through it at speeds that defied reason, the ancient city growing impossibly large ahead of them. 10 seconds. The Super Star Destroyer fired, not its turbolasers, but something else. A tractor beam, invisible but massive, reaching out to capture them. "They're trying to," McKay started. "Hold on." Sheppard pushed the engines past safety limits, burning power they couldn't spare, and the jumpers shot forward in one final desperate burst. They passed through Atlantis's shields like diving into water. The tractor beam broke. The jumper screamed into one of the city's small craft bays, reverse thrusters firing, and slammed to a halt barely meters from the far wall. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then McKay started laughing, the slightly unhinged laughter of someone who just survived the impossible. "We made it," he gasped. "We actually made it." Sheppard looked through the bay's opening at the Imperial fleet assembling outside, 5 Star Destroyers including Vader's massive flagship, hundreds of fighters, and more ships arriving from hyperspace every minute. "Made it home," he agreed quietly. "Now we just have to figure out how to survive what comes next." On the bridge of his Super Star Destroyer, Darth Vader stood before the viewport, staring at the ancient city that had just revealed itself. Through the Force, he reached out, trying to sense its inhabitants, trying to understand the strange void that surrounded them. And for the first time in 20 years, the Dark Lord felt something unexpected. Uncertainty. The command tower of Atlantis thrummed with barely controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the Imperial fleet arranging itself in siege formation, Star Destroyers at optimal firing range, TIE fighter squadrons forming blockade patterns, and probe droids being deployed to scan every centimeter of the ancient city's hull. Shield strength at 90%, McKay reported from his station, having sprinted from the jumper bay. ZPM reserves down to 37%. "We can withstand sustained bombardment for maybe 6 hours before shields fail." After that, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Sheppard stood in the ancient chair, the neural interface providing him with a 3-dimensional awareness of the tactical situation. Through Atlantis's sensors, he could detect every ship, every weapon, every targeting system locked onto the city. They were surrounded, outgunned by a factor of at least 50 to 1, and had nowhere to run. "Options," he said calmly, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "We could try to jump to hyperspace," Lorne suggested from the weapons console. "Dr. Zelenka's been working on adapting our systems to Star Wars-style FTL. It's untested, but..." "They'd track us," Ronan interrupted. "That rebel commander said Vader can follow ships through hyperspace using his Force abilities. We'd just be leading them to wherever we ran." "We could fight," Dr. Radek Zelenka offered from engineering. "Drone weapons are very effective against their technology. We destroyed many TIE fighters with minimal expenditure. We have approximately 400 drones remaining in the silos," McKay countered. "That fleet has thousands of fighters and 5 capital ships. We can hurt them, maybe even destroy 1 or 2 Star Destroyers, but they'll grind us down through sheer attrition. And we can't manufacture more drones without materials we don't have." Taylor stepped closer to the chair. "Then perhaps we negotiate. We demonstrated our defensive capabilities. Surely they understand that attacking us would be costly, even if they eventually prevailed." "The Empire doesn't negotiate with threats," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Kira Ven entering the command tower, escorted by 2 Marines. She'd refused to return with the rebel delegation, insisting on staying to help Atlantis understand what they faced. Vader serves an emperor who conquered a galaxy through overwhelming force and absolute intimidation. Showing strength doesn't make them negotiate, it makes them commit more resources to crush you. "Then what do you suggest?" Sheppard asked. Kira moved to the viewport, staring out at the assembled fleet with something between fear and resignation. "Vader is out there right now, trying to understand what you are. He's felt disturbances in the Force before, the Jedi he hunted, rebellious Force users, even ancient Sith artifacts. But you're something entirely outside his experience. A city full of people who barely exist in the Force, wielding technology that seems more like sorcery than engineering. She turned back to face them. That makes you either incredibly dangerous or incredibly valuable. Probably both. Great, McKay muttered. So we're either a threat to be destroyed or a prize to be captured. Wonderful options. There is a third possibility, Taylor said thoughtfully. What if we could convince them we are neither? What if we present ourselves as neutral, strangers with no stake in their conflict, seeking only a way home? We already tried that with the first Star Destroyer, Lorne reminded her. They responded with, surrender or die. That was a captain following protocol, Kira interjected. Vader is different. He's calculating, strategic. If he believed you truly had no interest in the Empire or the Rebellion, that you were simply trying to leave this galaxy, he might allow it. Especially if the alternative was a costly battle that damaged valuable ancient technology he'd rather study intact. Sheppard considered this. How do we convince a Sith Lord we're telling the truth? You said he can sense deception through the Force. He can sense most deception, Kira clarified. But you're still partially invisible to Force sensing. Your intentions read as, murky. Uncertain. Like trying to see through frosted glass. If you negotiate directly with him, he won't be able to read you as clearly as he would anyone from this galaxy. That might work in your favor, or it might make him more suspicious. We could try contacting him, Dr. Jennifer Keller suggested. Open communications, explain our situation. We're scientists and explorers, not warriors. Maybe he'd understand that. He was a Jedi once, Kira said softly. Before his fall. Some part of him might still remember what it meant to serve rather than dominate. But that was a lifetime ago, and the dark side has twisted him into something else entirely. I wouldn't count on mercy. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new alerts. McKay's face went pale. We've got a problem. The Super Star Destroyer is moving. It's repositioning to, oh no. That's a firing solution. They're targeting the central tower. Shields will hold, Zelenka said, though he sounded less certain than usual. Against that ship's main weapons? I don't know, Rodek. I really don't know. Before anyone could respond, the communications system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was deep, mechanical, and carried the weight of absolute authority. Ancient City. This is Lord Vader. I will speak with your commander. Immediately. Silence fell over the control tower. Everyone looked at Sheppard. He took a breath, straightened in the ancient chair, and nodded to McKay. Open a channel. Video and audio. Are you sure about? Do it. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into an image that made Kira involuntarily step back. Darth Vader stood on the bridge of his flagship, black armor gleaming under harsh lighting, his respirator creating a rhythm like mechanical breathing. The iconic helmet turned slightly, and even through the hologram, his presence was overwhelming, a darkness that seemed to pull at the edges of perception. I am Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard, Sheppard said, keeping his voice level and professional. Commander of the Atlantis expedition. Lord Vader. Colonel Sheppard. Vader's mechanical voice somehow conveyed both interest and threat. You command a vessel unlike any in Imperial records. Your weapons destroyed an entire fighter squadron and disabled the inexorable with surgical precision. Your technology defies conventional understanding. And yet, he paused. You are difficult to sense through the Force. As if you exist partially outside reality itself. Explain. Sheppard chose his words carefully. We're not from your galaxy, Lord Vader. We crossed dimensional barriers through an accident, a malfunction during faster-than-light travel. We have no interest in your empire or in the rebellion. We're just trying to find a way home. Dimensional travelers. Vader seemed to consider this. The Force encompasses all realities, all dimensions. Yet you stand outside it somehow. This technology you possess, it is not of this galaxy. No. It was built by a race called the Ancients, millions of years before humans even existed in our universe. We're just caretakers. Explorers using tools we barely understand. You understand them well enough to cripple Imperial Star Destroyers, Vader countered. Well enough to evade my fleet sensors. Well enough to pose a significant threat to Imperial security. The helmet tilted slightly. The Emperor has taken personal interest in your arrival, Colonel. He wishes to study your technology. To understand how it functions. You will surrender your vessel for inspection, and your crew will be taken into Imperial custody for questioning. That's not going to happen, Sheppard said flatly. Then you will be destroyed. No emotion in the mechanical voice. Just statement of fact. You could try, Sheppard replied. But it would cost you. Your empire would lose ships, personnel, and any chance of studying our technology intact. We'd make sure of that. If we're going down, we'll overload our power systems and take half your fleet with us. It was a bluff, mostly. The ZPMs could theoretically be overloaded, but McKay had never tested whether the resulting explosion would be contained or catastrophic. Still, Vader didn't need to know that. You would commit suicide rather than surrender. Something that might have been curiosity in Vader's tone. Interesting. Most beings value their lives above principles. We've faced extinction before, Sheppard said quietly. Sometimes survival means being willing to die on your own terms rather than live on someone else's. Vader was silent for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted subtly, less threatening, more calculating. You aided the rebel corvette. You provided cover for their escape. This suggests sympathy for the Alliance. We helped people who were being hunted, Sheppard corrected. We'd have done the same for Imperial forces in similar circumstances. We don't take sides in other people's wars. No. The hologram shifted as Vader gestured to someone off-screen. New images appeared, security footage from the Inexorable, showing the Jumper's attack, the precise targeting that disabled weapons without killing crew. You showed remarkable restraint, Colonel. You could have destroyed Captain Morse's ship completely, but you chose not to. That suggests either weakness or compassion. The Empire has no use for either. It suggests we're not murderers, Sheppard shot back. Your captain threatened us, so we defended ourselves. But we're not interested in killing anyone who doesn't force our hand. A Jedi philosophy, Vader observed, and something dark entered his voice. The Jedi believed in mercy, in redemption, in the sanctity of life. Their compassion made them weak. It made them easy to destroy. Kira made a small sound, pain and anger mixed, but remained silent. Sheppard felt the conversation slipping toward confrontation, so he tried a different approach. Lord Vader, what if we could find common ground? You want to understand our technology. We want to find a way home. What if we shared information that would help the Empire understand dimensional physics without giving you weapons technology? Scientific knowledge, not military applications. Why would you offer this? Because we need resources, Sheppard admitted. Power sources compatible with our systems, materials for repairs, access to your Galaxy star charts and scientific databases. We can't find a way home without understanding the differences between our universe and yours. If we work together, limited, specific cooperation, we both get something we want without fighting a war neither of us can afford. Vader considered this. Through the Force, he reached out again, trying to read Sheppard's intentions. He found the same frustrating opacity, emotions present but muted, thoughts present but unclear, as if examining someone through layers of distortion. The man seemed genuine, but Vader had learned long ago that seeming and being were not the same thing. The Emperor will not accept partial cooperation, Vader said finally. He will demand full access to your technology or he will order your destruction. Those are the only options he understands. Then we have a problem, Sheppard replied. Because those aren't options we can accept. Yes. Vader paused. We do have a problem. The transmission cut abruptly. Vader's image vanished, leaving only the tactical display showing the Imperial fleet still surrounding them. That went well, McKay said with heavy sarcasm. We've established that neither side is willing to back down, we've confirmed that negotiation is impossible, and we've essentially guaranteed they're going to attack us. Brilliant diplomacy, Sheppard. He was never going to let us go, Kira said quietly. The Empire doesn't allow threats to exist. They eliminate them. At least now Vader knows you're willing to fight, and that you're not easy prey. That might make him hesitate, calculate the cost more carefully. Or it might make him commit everything he has to crush us, Lorne countered. Either way, we're out of time. Zelenka pulled up new sensor data. More Imperial ships arriving from hyperspace. 2 additional Star Destroyers, support vessels, what looks like a troop transport. They are preparing for full-scale assault. Sheppard closed his eyes, reaching through the neural interface to feel Atlantis's systems. The city hummed around him, shields strong, weapons ready, power reserves diminishing but still operational. 300 people depending on him to find a way out of an impossible situation. He'd been in impossible situations before. Atlantis rising from the ocean depths. The Wraith siege. Michael's hybrid army. Ford's betrayal. Every time, they'd found a way to survive through intelligence, courage, and refusing to accept defeat. This was just another impossible situation. He opened his eyes. All right. They want to fight. Let's give them something they'll remember. Lorne, I want drone weapons deployed in defensive pattern alpha, focus on protecting our critical systems. Zelenka, start routing auxiliary power to shields, I don't care if it means shutting down non-essential systems. McKay, how fast can you get that hyperdrive adaptation functional? With proper testing? Days. Without testing? Maybe an hour, but there's a 60% chance we'll tear a hole in space-time and destroy ourselves. Make it 70% and call it acceptable odds. Ronan, Taylor, coordinate security teams. If they try to board us, I want every approach covered. And if they simply bombard us from range? Taylor asked. Then we survive as long as we can and make them regret ever finding us. Sheppard's voice hardened. We came to this galaxy by accident. We tried peace. They chose war. Now they're going to learn that Atlantis doesn't surrender. On the view screen, the Imperial fleet began to advance. The siege had begun. The first volley came at dawn, though dawn had no meaning in the void of space. Coordinated turbolaser fire from 3 Star Destroyers hammered Atlantis's shields in a cascading wave of emerald fury that lit the darkness like artificial stars. The ancient city shuddered, energy barriers flaring brilliant blue as they absorbed impacts that would have vaporized conventional vessels. Shields holding at 82%. McKay shouted over alarms that shrieked through the control tower. But they're cycling targeting, hitting different sections, looking for weak points. They're not trying to overwhelm us all at once. They're testing us. Sheppard's consciousness was merged with the city through the neural interface, feeling every impact like blows against his own body. Through ancient sensors, he watched the Imperial fleet's tactical movements, professional, methodical, the work of commanders who'd fought 1,000 battles and knew exactly how to reduce fortified positions. Vader's learning, Kira observed from her position near the viewport. Through the Force, she could feel the Dark Lord's presence reaching out, analyzing, calculating. He's measuring your defensive capabilities before committing to full assault. Then let's teach him something, Sheppard said. Through the chair interface, he designated targets with pure thought. Lorne, drone weapons. 10 drones, spread across all 3 attacking Star Destroyers. Target their shield generators, I want them defensive, not offensive. Golden weapons erupted from Atlantis's concealed silos, streaking toward the Imperial vessels with impossible speed. The Star Destroyer's point defense systems tried to intercept, filling space with desperate fire, but ancient technology simply wove through the defensive screen as if it didn't exist. The drones struck with surgical precision, not against the Star Destroyer's hulls, but against the projector towers that generated their deflector shields. Massive explosions rippled across gray metal, and suddenly 3 Imperial capital ships found themselves vulnerable, their protective barriers collapsing. "Cease fire," Vader's voice cut across all Imperial channels. "All ships, withdraw to defensive positions. Now." The Star Destroyers retreated, their turbolaser batteries falling silent as they pulled back to regroup. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Pyatt approached Vader with visible nervousness. "My lord, our shields are down on the Conquest, Intimidator, and Devastator. Repairs will take at least 3 hours. Those weapons are more sophisticated than anything in the Imperial arsenal," Vader finished. "They do not simply destroy, they adapt, predict, learn. Whoever built that city understood warfare at a level we have yet to achieve." He stared at Atlantis through the viewport, and through the Force, he reached out again, trying to penetrate the mystery of the ancient city. What he found disturbed him deeply. The city itself resonated with the Force in ways nothing technological should, as if it were alive, or had been built by beings who understood the Force on a fundamental level. And the crew, they were still shadows, barely present, existing at the edges of his perception like ghosts. "Bring up the interrogation records from Captain Moore's," Vader commanded. "I want to know everything that was said during first contact." Inside Atlantis, McKay was running damage assessments with frantic energy. "We used 10 drones. That leaves 390. Their 3 Star Destroyers are wounded but not destroyed, and they've got 4 more ships with full shields plus that Super Star Destroyer that we haven't even touched yet. Sheppard, the math doesn't work. We can't win a battle of attrition." "We're not trying to win," Sheppard replied, pulling back from the neural interface. "We're trying to survive long enough to find an alternative." "Alternative to what?" "Being blown to atoms or being captured by space fascists. Because those seem to be our only options at the moment." "There's always another option," Sheppard said for what felt like the 100th time. "Zelenka, status on the hyperdrive?" The Czech scientist looked up from his console, face drawn with exhaustion. "Is functional." "Probably. We have adapted ancient wormhole technology to mimic their hyperspace principles, but the calculations are extraordinarily complex. Jump requires precise gravitational mapping, and we have only partial data on this region of space." "Partial is better than nothing," Ronan said. "We jump, we run, we live to fight another day. Except Vader tracks us through the Force," Taylor reminded him. "We discussed this. We would only be postponing the inevitable. Unless we jump somewhere he can't follow," Keller interjected quietly. Everyone turned to look at her, and she flushed but continued. "I mean, Kira said the Force connects all living things in this galaxy, right? What if we jump somewhere outside the galaxy? Into intergalactic space where there's no life for the Force to connect with? Would that break his tracking ability?" Kira's eyes widened. "That's actually brilliant. The Force becomes diffuse in the void between galaxies. There's so little life that Force sensing becomes nearly impossible. If you jumped far enough into intergalactic space, Vader would lose you completely." "How far is far enough?" Sheppard asked. Zelenka was already calculating. Edge of galaxy is approximately 50,000 light-years from galactic core. But hyperspace travel in this universe is very fast, they measure in parsecs and hours, not years. We could reach intergalactic void in, perhaps 6 hours at maximum speed. 6 hours of running with an Imperial fleet chasing us, McKay said. During which they'll be shooting at us constantly, draining our shields, forcing us to return fire and waste drones we can't replace. We might not survive 6 hours. What if we had help? Kira asked suddenly. The rebellion, General Rieekan's fleet. If they created a distraction, pulled some of Vader's forces away from you, would that improve your odds? We're not dragging the rebels into this, Sheppard said immediately. They've got their own war to fight. We're not worth them losing more people. That should be their choice, not yours, Kira countered. And believe me, Colonel, the rebellion would see this as worth it. If Atlantis survives, if you escape the Empire's clutches, it proves that the Emperor isn't invincible. It gives people hope. Hope is what keeps the rebellion alive. Before Sheppard could respond, new alerts blared across the tactical display. Lorne's voice cut through with barely controlled urgency. Colonel, we've got multiple hyperspace signatures. New contacts emerging at the system's edge. The holographic display erupted with new icons, ships dropping from faster-than-light travel in a ragged formation that spoke of desperate speed rather than military precision. McKay enhanced the sensor data, and his jaw dropped. It's the rebellion. That's Rieekan's corvettes, plus, oh my god, they brought everything. I'm counting 12 ships, corvettes, frigates, even a few heavy cruisers. That's not a task force, that's their entire fleet in this sector. They came back, Taylor breathed. Even knowing Vader was here, they came back. The communications system crackled, and General Rieekan's voice emerged, tense but determined. Atlantis, this is General Rieekan. We're here to help whether you want it or not. Vader will never let you escape on your own, but if we split his attention, maybe both of us survive this. What do you say, Colonel? Feel like fighting beside the rebellion? Sheppard looked around the control tower, at his team, at Kira's hopeful expression, at the tactical display showing impossible odds. The smart play was to refuse, to avoid entangling Atlantis in a civil war that wasn't their problem. But he thought about Rieekan's people risking everything to help strangers. About Kira staying aboard even though running would have been safer. About the Empire's casual assumption that overwhelming force gave them the right to demand surrender or extinction. He'd spent years in the Pegasus galaxy fighting the Wraith, an enemy that saw humans as nothing more than food. He'd lost friends, made impossible choices, and learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to fight for something bigger than yourself. Hope is what keeps the rebellion alive. Before Sheppard could respond, new alerts blared across the tactical display. Lorne's voice cut through with barely controlled urgency. Colonel, we've got multiple hyperspace signatures. New contacts emerging at the system's edge. The holographic display erupted with new icons, ships dropping from faster-than-light travel in a ragged formation that spoke of desperate speed rather than military precision. McKay enhanced the sensor data, and his jaw dropped. It's the rebellion. That's Rieekan's corvettes, plus, oh my god, they brought everything. I'm counting 12 ships, corvettes, frigates, even a few heavy cruisers. That's not a task force, that's their entire fleet in this sector. They came back, Taylor breathed. Even knowing Vader was here, they came back. The communications system crackled, and General Rieekan's voice emerged, tense but determined. Atlantis, this is General Rieekan. We're here to help whether you want it or not. Vader will never let you escape on your own, but if we split his attention, maybe both of us survive this. What do you say, Colonel? Feel like fighting beside the rebellion? Sheppard looked around the control tower, at his team, at Kira's hopeful expression, at the tactical display showing impossible odds. The smart play was to refuse, to avoid entangling Atlantis in a civil war that wasn't their problem. But he thought about Rieekan's people risking everything to help strangers. About Kira staying aboard even though running would have been safer. About the Empire's casual assumption that overwhelming force gave them the right to demand surrender or extinction. He'd spent years in the Pegasus galaxy fighting the Wraith, an enemy that saw humans as nothing more than food. He'd lost friends, made impossible choices, and learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to fight for something bigger than yourself. Maybe this galaxy wasn't so different after all. All right, General, Sheppard said. Let's do this. But we're going to need a plan better than shoot everything and hope for the best. I was afraid you'd say that, Rieekan replied, and there was a smile in his voice. Because I've got a plan, and it's absolutely crazy. How do you feel about using that city of yours as bait? I hate bait plans, McKay muttered. Then you're really going to hate what comes next, Rieekan said. Here's what we're going to do. On the bridge of his flagship, Darth Vader felt the disturbance in the Force the moment the rebel fleet arrived. 12 ships, insignificant compared to his firepower, but their timing suggested coordination, intelligence, purpose. They'd come specifically to aid the ancient city. The rebels form alliance with this unknown force, Vader observed to Admiral Piatt. This confirms they see Atlantis as a potential weapon against the Empire. We cannot allow them to escape together. Shall I engage the rebel fleet, my lord? Vader considered. He could crush the rebels easily, their ships were old, outgunned, desperate. But doing so would take time and resources, and during that time, the ancient city might escape. Yet if he focused exclusively on Atlantis, the rebels could harry his forces, disrupt his formations, create chaos. A tactical dilemma. The kind of problem that had only one real solution. Commit everything, Vader ordered. All ships, all fighters, all firepower. We destroy them all. Today, we break both the rebel fleet and this ancient city. Admiral, launch the assault. Total warfare. No survivors. The Imperial fleet surged forward as one, 7 Star Destroyers including Vader's massive flagship, hundreds of TIE fighters darkening space like a swarm, and enough firepower to reduce planets to rubble. The rebel fleet moved to intercept, their smaller ships dancing between the Imperial behemoths like fighter craft against capital ships. And Atlantis, caught in the middle, prepared for the battle of its life. Sheppard settled deeper into the ancient chair, the neural interface expanding until he could feel every system, every weapon, every shield generator across the entire city. Through his connection, Atlantis became an extension of his will, 10,000 years of ancient engineering responding to human determination. Rieekan, he transmitted. We're ready. Execute your plan. Acknowledged. All rebel ships, Operation Exodus is go. May the Force be with us all. The rebel fleet split into 3 groups, each vectoring toward different Star Destroyers, forcing Vader to divide his attention. Atlantis's shields flared to maximum as the city began to move, sublight engines burning bright, accelerating toward the edge of the system where intergalactic space beckoned. And behind them, Darth Vader's fleet gave chase, the Dark Lord's presence in the Force growing stronger with each passing second, hunting, pursuing, determined to claim the prize that had dared to defy the Empire. The final battle had begun. Space became fire. Atlantis accelerated through the void on pillars of ancient power, her sublight engines pushing the massive city ship toward speeds no structure her size should achieve. Behind her, the Imperial fleet gave chase, Star Destroyers burning hard, TIE fighters swarming like locusts, and turbolaser fire painting the darkness with emerald death. Shields at 68%. McKay's voice cracked with strain as he fought to keep power balanced across failing systems. They're concentrating fire on our engines. If they disable our propulsion before we reach jump distance. They won't, Sheppard said through gritted teeth, his consciousness merged so deeply with Atlantis that he could feel the turbolaser impacts like physical blows. Through the neural interface, he designated targets with pure thought, TIE fighters pursuing too close, weapon emplacements on the nearest Star Destroyer, trajectory calculations for evasive maneuvers that a city shouldn't be able to perform. Drone weapons streaked from Atlantis's silos in controlled bursts, not the overwhelming swarm they'd used before, but precise strikes aimed at buying time rather than winning battles. Each golden weapon found its target, TIE fighters exploded, turbolaser batteries went dark, sensor arrays shattered into spinning fragments. But for every threat eliminated, 3 more took its place. Rebel fleet engaging. Lorne reported from Tactical. On the holographic display, Rieekan's 12 ships had split into 3 groups as planned, each group targeting a different Star Destroyer in a desperate attempt to divide Imperial attention. Rebel corvettes danced between the massive capital ships like fighters harassing giants, their weapons barely scratching Imperial armor but forcing the Star Destroyers to adjust formations, to divert point defense systems, to react. It was working. Barely. The Redemption's call is taking heavy fire. Kira called out, her force senses tracking the battle with accuracy no sensor could match. Their shields are failing, they're pulling back. Negative. Rieekan's voice cut through the calm, breathless with effort. We hold position. Atlantis needs every second we can buy them. An explosion blossomed in the distance, one of the rebel frigates, torn apart by concentrated turbolaser fire from the Devastator. 16 people gone in an instant, their sacrifice buying Atlantis perhaps 20 seconds of reduced pressure. We're losing them, Taylor said quietly, watching the rebel ships fighting and dying to protect strangers. They cannot sustain this. Jump calculations at 80%, Zelenka announced, his fingers dancing across ancient controls that were never designed for Star Wars hyperspace physics. We need 3 more minutes to reach safe jump distance and finalize coordinates. We don't have 3 minutes. McKay shouted as another massive impact rocked Atlantis. Shields at 51%. One of those Star Destroyers is angling for a broadside. If they get that firing solution, they'll hit us with everything they have. Through the chair interface, Sheppard felt Vader's flagship accelerating, its massive bulk moving with surprising speed to cut off Atlantis's escape vector. The Super Star Destroyer's main weapons were charging, energy signatures building to levels that made ancient sensors scream warnings. He's going to try to disable us with one shot, Kira said, her face pale. I can feel his intent through the Force. He knows we're about to escape, so he's gambling everything on one overwhelming strike. Sheppard's mind raced through options, each one worse than the last. They could turn and fight, use their remaining drones in one massive alpha strike against Vader's flagship. But that would mean abandoning the rebel fleet to its fate and probably wouldn't be enough to stop a ship that size. They could divert all power to shields and engines, but that would leave them defenseless if the shields failed. They could. Colonel. Ronan's voice carried a strange note. The rebels, they're doing something. On the tactical display, Rieekan's remaining ships were converging, forming a wall of vessels between Atlantis and Vader's flagship. 11 ships, all that remained of the rebel force, positioning themselves directly in the Super Star Destroyer's firing line. What are they doing? Keller breathed. They're shielding us, Taylor said, understanding and horror mixing in her voice. They're going to take the hit meant for Atlantis. No, Sheppard said immediately, opening the comm channel. Rieekan, negative. Get your ships clear. That's an order. With respect, Colonel, you don't give me orders. Rieekan's voice was calm, almost peaceful. This is our choice. The rebellion has lost thousands of good people to the Empire. But if Atlantis survives, if your city escapes, it proves something important, that the Empire can be defied. That hope exists. That's worth 11 ships. That's worth our lives. General, Sheppard started. Tell our story, Colonel Sheppard. Tell people across this galaxy that the rebellion gave you time to escape. That we stood between tyranny and freedom one last time. That's all we ask. The Super Star Destroyer's main batteries fired. 60 turbolaser cannons erupting simultaneously, their combined power enough to crack a planet's crust. The beams converged on the rebel fleet's position, and for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, the void became light. The rebel ship's shields flared brilliant white, then collapsed. Hulls vaporized. Reactors detonated. 11 vessels, corvettes, frigates, cruisers, ceased to exist in an expanding sphere of superheated plasma and debris. 473 people died. In Atlantis's control tower, silence fell like ash. Even McKay, who always had words for everything, simply stared at the expanding cloud of wreckage where the rebel fleet had been. Jump calculations complete, Zelenka said quietly, his voice hollow. We can leave now. Sheppard wanted to scream. To turn Atlantis around and unleash every drone weapon they had against Vader's ship. To make the Empire pay for what they'd done. But that would dishonor the sacrifice, would waste the time bought with hundreds of lives. Execute jump, he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. Get us out of here. Ancient systems engaged, and suddenly Atlantis was moving, not through normal space, but through the twisted dimension that Star Wars called hyperspace. The familiar stars elongated into infinite lines as the city punched through reality itself, accelerating to speeds that made light seem stationary. Behind them, Vader's flagship attempted pursuit, but the Super Star Destroyer was too massive, too slow to accelerate as quickly. By the time its hyperdrive engaged, Atlantis was already gone, racing toward the galactic rim and the empty void beyond. Inside the city, the journey felt like riding a storm, violent, chaotic, fundamentally wrong for a structure never meant to move this way. Alarms blared. Systems groaned. The hyperdrive adaptation that Zelenka had jury-rigged screamed as it forced ancient technology to obey alien physics. 5 hours to galactic edge, Zelenka reported, fighting to keep the unstable drive from tearing itself apart. Then we will be beyond range of any tracking, any pursuit. We will be free. 473 people died to get us here, Kira said softly. She'd felt each death through the Force, bright flames extinguished in an instant. General Rieekan. Major Serevan. Pilots whose names I knew. Engineers who'd shown me kindness. All gone. They chose this, Taylor said gently. They understood the cost and accepted it. We honor them by surviving, by remembering, by ensuring their sacrifice mattered. Did it matter? McKay asked bitterly. We're running away. The Empire still controls this galaxy. The rebellion just lost a significant portion of their fleet. What did we accomplish except getting good people killed? We proved the Empire can be defied, Sheppard said, echoing Rieekan's final words. We showed that even Vader's fleet isn't unstoppable. And we lived, which means someday, we might find a way home. That matters. It has to matter. The hours crawled by. Atlantis raced through hyperspace while her crew tried to process what had happened. Medical teams treated the injuries from the battle, mostly minor, thank God, no deaths among the expedition. Engineering teams worked frantically to repair systems damaged during the fighting. Scientists analyzed every scrap of data collected about this strange galaxy and its even stranger physics. And in the control tower, Sheppard sat in the ancient chair and wondered if they'd made the right choices. Finally, after 5 hours that felt like 5 years, Zelenka announced, we are approaching galactic edge. Dropping from hyperspace in 30 seconds. The city shuddered as it transitioned back to normal space, and suddenly they were somewhere utterly alien. Behind them, the distant spiral of the Star Wars galaxy glowed like a jewel against infinite darkness. Ahead stretched nothing, the void between galaxies, where even stars dared not venture. Force presence fading, Kira reported, her force senses reaching out into the empty dark. There's no life out here. Nothing for the Force to connect with. If Vader followed us, he'd be completely blind. We're safe. For now, Ronan added. Always the pragmatist. McKay ran sensor sweeps, searching for any sign of pursuit. Nothing on scanners. No hyperspace signatures, no ships, no contacts at all. We're alone. He looked up at Sheppard. What now? Sheppard pulled back from the neural interface, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of 6 hours merged with a city ship. Now we rest. We repair. We figure out where we are and how to use what we learned about Star Wars physics to maybe, find a way home. And if we can't? Keller asked. Then we adapt, Taylor said firmly. We always have. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. Engineering teams worked around the clock analyzing the differences between ancient wormhole technology and Star Wars hyperspace. Scientists pored over data collected from the Imperial ships, looking for clues about this universe's physical laws. And slowly, painfully, they began to understand how they might bridge the dimensional gap. Dr. Zelenka made the breakthrough on the 4th day. The dimensional rift we came through, it was not random. The wormhole drive was attempting to create stable Einstein-Rosen bridge when Wraith weapons disrupted the calculations. Instead of folding space, it folded reality, punching through to this parallel universe. If we could reverse the process, intentionally create another dimensional rift, we could punch back through to our own universe, McKay finished, understanding dawning. But we'd need massive amounts of power. More than our remaining ZPMs can provide. Not necessarily, Zelenka countered. If we use what we learned about hyperspace physics, the way this universe manipulates gravitational gradients, we could piggyback on that energy, use it to amplify our own dimensional breach. It would be extraordinarily dangerous. Probability of catastrophic failure is perhaps 40%. 40% chance we die horribly, 60% chance we make it home, Sheppard summarized. I've faced worse odds. 3 weeks after entering intergalactic space, Atlantis was ready. The dimensional rift generator, a hybrid of ancient technology and jury-rigged Star Wars principles, sat in the city's main power chamber, drawing from the ZPM's remaining reserves. The entire expedition gathered in the control tower for the attempt. 300 people who'd survived the Wraith, survived the Azurans, survived a week in a galaxy not their own, now gambling everything on one final jump. Power at maximum, McKay reported, his hands steady on the controls despite visible nervousness. Dimensional calculations locked. We're targeting the exact coordinates where we entered this universe. There should be a weak point there, a scar in reality we can exploit. All personnel brace for dimensional transition, Sheppard announced over citywide comm, this is going to be rough. You always say that, Ronan commented. It's always true. Sheppard gave the order. McKay activated the rift generator. Reality screamed. The universe folded in ways geometry couldn't describe, physics couldn't explain, and consciousness couldn't process. Atlantis existed in 2 places simultaneously, in no places, in every place. The boundaries between dimensions became meaningless as ancient technology forced its way through the barrier between realities. And then, with a sensation like falling and flying simultaneously, they were through. Stars resolved into familiar patterns. Sensor readings showed constellations they recognized. The energy signatures around them matched Pegasus Galaxy standards. No more force, no more exotic hyperspace physics, just good old-fashioned wormhole theory and quantum mechanics. We're home, McKay breathed, hardly daring to believe it. We actually made it home. Cheers erupted through the city. People embraced, cried, laughed with relief and joy. They'd survived the impossible, escaped a galaxy at war, and returned to their own reality. But in the control tower, Sheppard stood quietly at the viewport, staring out at familiar stars. He thought about General Rieekan, noble, brave, dead. About 473 rebels who'd sacrificed everything for strangers. About Kira Ven, who'd stayed to help even when running would have been safer, and who'd returned with them, unable to face her own galaxy after such loss. They'll never know we made it, he said quietly. The rebellion. They died believing we'd survive, but they'll never know they were right. Their sacrifice still mattered, Taylor said, joining him at the viewport. Perhaps more so because it was made without certainty of success. That is the truest form of courage. The force is gone, Kira said softly, holding up her hand as if trying to grasp something no longer there. I can't feel it anymore. It doesn't exist in your universe. I'm just normal now. No Jedi powers. No connection to the cosmic energy that defined my entire life. You're still a warrior, Ronan told her. Still someone who stood against impossible odds. That doesn't come from force powers. That comes from here. He tapped his chest. Heart. That translates across any universe. Kira smiled sadly. I hope you're right. In the weeks that followed, Atlantis returned to Pegasus Galaxy operations, fighting the Wraith, exploring ancient ruins, doing what they'd always done. But something had changed. The expedition carried new knowledge now, proof that other realities existed, that the universe was even stranger and more wondrous than they'd imagined. And they carried names. 473 names that Dr. Keller meticulously recorded from fragmentary data collected during the battle, rebel pilots, engineers, soldiers, all who died so that Atlantis could live. Their names were inscribed on a memorial in the city's main plaza. Not forgotten. Never forgotten. Kira stood before that memorial one evening, reading names she'd known, and Sheppard found her there. Do you regret coming with us? He asked. You could have returned with Rieekan. Fought the Empire. Maybe made a difference. I would have died, Kira said simply. Vader would have found me eventually. At least this way, I'm alive. And maybe, she touched the memorial. Maybe I can honor their memory by helping your expedition. You fight the Wraith, creatures that see humans as food. That's not so different from fighting an empire that sees people as resources to exploit. We could use another warrior, Sheppard agreed. Welcome to Atlantis, Kira. Permanently. She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Thank you, Colonel. For giving me a future when my past was taken away. They stood together before the memorial as Atlantis's lights came on against the darkness, a city of hope in a galaxy that desperately needed it, carrying the memory of heroes from another reality who'd proven that courage and sacrifice transcended all boundaries. The Star Wars galaxy continued its war without them. The Empire hunted for the mysterious city that had vanished. Vader never forgot the ancient technology that had defied him. And somewhere, in hidden rebel bases, the story spread of a city from beyond the stars that had proven the Empire could be challenged. Hope, after all, was the most dangerous weapon of all. And Atlantis, ancient, powerful, enduring, sailed on through the cosmos, carrying the light of that hope wherever she went. The dimensional breach that brought Atlantis to the Star Wars galaxy closed behind them, sealing two realities apart once more. But the impact of that brief collision would echo across both universes. In the Star Wars galaxy, the legend of the ancient city became a symbol, proof that the Empire was not invincible, that even Darth Vader could be defied. Rebel cells across 1,000 worlds drew strength from the story, and Imperial scientists spent years trying to understand technology that had simply vanished like a dream. In the Pegasus galaxy, Atlantis gained more than just knowledge. They'd learned that heroism existed in every reality, that sacrifice transcended dimensional boundaries, and that even in the darkest times, ordinary people could choose extraordinary courage. The expedition had arrived in another galaxy as lost travelers. They left as something more, witnesses to the price of freedom, carriers of a message that some battles were worth fighting regardless of the odds. Kira then adapted to life without the Force, discovering that her strength had never truly come from mystical powers but from the choices she made. She became one of Atlantis's finest warriors, her lightsaber, now just an elegant weapon rather than a Force-powered tool, displayed in the memorial hall alongside the names of the fallen. General Rieekan's final transmission was preserved in Atlantis's database, studied by command staff as an example of leadership and sacrifice. His words, "Tell our story," became a reminder that every victory carried responsibility to honor those who made it possible. The ZPMs never fully recovered from the dimensional crossing, their power permanently diminished. But the knowledge gained, the understanding of dimensional physics, the proof that parallel universes existed, opened new avenues of research that would serve the expedition for years to come. And on quiet nights, when Sheppard stood in the control tower looking out at familiar stars, he sometimes thought about the galaxy they'd left behind. About whether the rebellion eventually won their war. About whether the sacrifice of 473 people ultimately mattered in the grand sweep of history. He chose to believe it did. Because if courage and sacrifice didn't matter, then nothing did. Atlantis had touched 2 galaxies and been forever changed. But she endured, ancient, powerful, and carrying within her bulkheads the memory of heroes who'd proven that hope could bridge any distance, survive any darkness, and outlast any empire. The city of the ancients had witnessed the best of what both galaxies could offer, warriors who fought not for glory but for principle, who sacrificed not for victory but for ideals, who chose hope over cynicism and courage over fear. That was the true legacy of Atlantis's journey, not the technology gained or enemies faced, but the reminder that across all realities, in every universe, the light of human courage could never be truly extinguished. And somewhere in the void between dimensions, where reality grew thin and strange, the echoes of that courage lingered, a testament to the day 2 galaxies touched, and hope prevailed. May the Force be with you. More stories await.